and invention.
Living in the moment, and the moment is the future.
Technology, common sense, meets the sixth sense.
Ray Plutonian Confessions here for your weekly transit talk discussion for the dates of May 20th through the 26th of 2018. So let's get started. The next full moon will happen in 8.9 days from now on the 29th of May 2018. At this moment, the moon is in Leo. It'll enter Virgo in 1.4 days on the 21st of May 2018 at 7:02 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. The sun is currently at 29 degrees of Taurus. It'll actually enter Gemini in 10 hours and 18 minutes from now. Mercury is still in Taurus at 11 degrees. We have Venus in the first degree of Cancer as of today. Mars is in Aquarius, if people haven't kind of felt that at least. That's Aquarius is a trauma signature. And that actually does play into the Kilauea eruptions that have or activity that's been recently happening. I wouldn't necessarily call that a huge eruption or anything, but yeah. It goes retrograde in 37 days from now, by the way, and that will be the 26th of June, 2018. For the retrograde planets, we still currently have Jupiter, Saturn, and Pluto all retrograde. For Jupiter, it goes direct in 51 days. That'll be the 10th of July, 2018. As for Saturn, we still have that at 8 degrees of Capricorn. It'll go direct in 108 days from now, which will be the 6th of September, 2018. And as I've mentioned on my Instagram recently, we now have Uranus in Taurus, and it is at 0 degrees of Taurus, and it goes retrograde in 79 days from now, by the way. So we're going to dilly-dally with Uranus going into the 29th degree of Aries, and then going back into Taurus. So it'll work the same kind of way as if you happen to have Saturn go retrograde and then direct during a Saturn return. It feels like you're going to have like a double whammy of deja vu when it comes to trends and everything. So since we have volcanic activity and volatility going on as Uranus goes into Taurus, just as it did this week, we will be seeing similar events or similar themes later in the year during Virgo season. Then we look at Neptune, which is at 16 degrees of Pisces. That hasn't moved in a long time. But we do have a retrograde cycle coming up in 29 days from now on the 18th of June, 2018. And for Pluto, we have 21 degrees of Capricorn. And again, that's one of the planets that's still retrograde. And it does go direct in 133 days from now, which will be the 30th of September, 2018. So for the week ahead, the now houses for this week, we have a stellium of Leo with the moon, Ceres, and the North Node. So this week is going to be a lot about focusing on healing or focusing on nurturing people. Ideally, the Kilauea volcano is a great example of that. People are primarily going to be trying to focus on how to secure themselves and help themselves, despite all the chaos, quote-unquote, going on. And when I say chaos, we look at the polarity house, the 7th house. We have Pluto, Black Moon, Lilith, and obviously, even though it's in Aquarius, we have Mars and the South Node there as well. So, the defeating behavior or a continuous trend of self-defeating behavior will be going on despite the efforts of people who are trying to help people, deal with situations ongoing. And then for the other now houses, we have Jupiter and Scorpio in the 4th house, meaning that there's going to be some sort of destruction or exaggerated chaos, more or less, going on, transformation going on in the home territory or in the person's home in general. And that does coincide again with the, I just keep thinking of the actual eruption in Hawaii, just because I just recently did a transit talk on that. And then we also have Eris and Uranus and Mercury in the 10th house, meaning that the main theme throughout the news for this week will definitely just be perpetuating chaos and anxiety, unfortunately for that. And the future houses for this, so beyond this next week through May 20th to the 26th, we have Trans-Pluto in the 2nd house, we have the Polar Ascendant, and we have the Earth symbol in Scorpio in the 5th house. We have Neptune in the 8th house, and then we have the Sun again and Vulcan in the 11th house. that does signify that there's going to be an immersive activity, that this is just kind of picking up as we're getting started, and that whatever themes will transpire this week will be the beginning and a continuation of those kinds of destructive themes. Alright, so instead of going all Nostradamus on you, I know you guys get enough of that from the news, let's go ahead and switch gears here and go to the calendar and break down the week for the 20th of May, the last day of Taurus, into the 26th of May, which will start us in the Gemini season and for the weekend. I have two charts up here at this moment. I have the weekly transits, and then I have the USA for more of a mundane political perspective. Before we get too carried away into the sociological factors, let's go ahead and cover gardening, since it's that time of year. So, for the first 2 days of the week, the 20th and the 21st, we still have the moon in Leo. So having it in a fire sign is a good time to plant crops with internal seeds, such as beans, squash, and tomatoes. Then as we go into Mars Day, Tuesday, we'll have the moon in Virgo, which will be an earth sign, which is a great time to be planting root crops such as onions, potatoes, and beets. And then as we go into Thursday, Jupiter Day, air signs are notorious for not being that great with gardening, so this is the ideal time to be making your garden beautiful with flowers and planting flowers and such. Air signs are great at that. So enjoy your end of your week and going into Friday by planting some beautiful pansies or something to that extent. But then as we go into the weekend itself, the 26th Saturday, we'll have the moon go into Scorpio, which is a great time to plant leafy vegetables such as spinach, lettuce, and kale. So all you garden lovers out there, especially for vegetable gardens, you can end your weekend by being productive with that. And yeah, so let's go ahead and move on and break down the weekly transit. So for the USA's sociological transits for this week, we have transit to natal aspects with Venus to the midheaven, Mercury to the ascendant, and Sun to Saturn on the 20th today. And those would translate to tensions potentially in your relations or your love life. So this will be more tensions politically, and there being quarrels or disagreements with how potentially finances and or ways to care and nurture for other people will be conducted. That goes back into the stellium of Leo being in the first house, and with all the other chaos signatures in the now houses for the beginning of this week. Then we look at Mercury, which is quincunx to the ascendant, that says that you need to assert your needs and then let go, regardless if people respond positively or not. You can't control outcomes right now. You have to do the best that you can. Don't overexert and exhaust yourself by squabbling about unnecessary details that are out of your control. That goes back to the chaos signatures in the now houses. So for the Sun to sesquare Saturn, that's going to be conflicts with the state to the individual. So steady accomplishment is the way to go. Be patient in tackling any obstacles and make tough decisions. That will definitely apply to, for example, any of the National Guard help that's going to Hawaii. There's going to be a lot of confrontation with the individuals who live in Hawaii as opposed to the state coming in and trying to help them with that. That will be an echoing theme throughout today and going into tomorrow as well. Then for Monday, to start off your work week, we have a conjunction with Venus to Venus in transit to natal, and then we have a sextile with Mercury to the Sun. So good news is coming your way. You are positive and you let ideas flow, and you can let your confidence speak for itself. That's naturally the kind of demeanor most people have, especially on Moon Day when the moon is in Leo. And then, despite any of the disagreements or confrontations, you should be at least beginning the work week on a good note with people. And bliss, you seem to delight in everything and everyone right now. Take pleasure in the harmony while it lasts, especially since the following day is Mars Day, and that's notorious for pretty much bursting the bubble with that bliss. So for the transits We have transit to natal Mercury and Saturn aspects, as well as Sun to the midhaven, and Saturn and Mercury sesquare to the midhaven as well. Concentration is a challenge before your mind goes into overload. Adjust your thinking, and then your workload as follows. It is time to focus on achieving your goals. Don't look back, think positively, and move forward. That's definitely hard to do, especially when the moon goes into Virgo. That's a very fickle sign to have the moon in, where you're very self-critical. It's very important to try to nip that in the bud, or to alleviate that as much as possible. Don't harp on yourself any more than you already probably are, especially with Mars being in Aquarius. That is a trauma signature. So don't overwork yourself, and don't exhaust yourself into some sort of anxiety frenzy, because that's exactly what those kinds of aspects have the predispositions for. Expressing your opinions, ego involvement in one's ideas and communication, a strong sense of purpose, and it could lead to nervous tension. Again, that's just re-emphasizing on the Mars being in Aquarius, and then the moon being in Virgo. That's definitely a very tough aspect to deal with. So you're going to have to keep that in mind for the work week for Tuesday and Wednesday. That's the times when the moon will be in Virgo. It will be in Virgo too for the very start of Thursday before it goes into Libra. So that's something to keep in mind as well. So if you start to have a really intense week, especially internally on yourself, just do what you can to alleviate any of the exacerbated nervous tension or anxiety. And hopefully, if you can balance and zen yourself, then you'll be fine by the end of the week, going into the weekend. And then you can just relax and garden, as I was suggesting earlier. And for all you air signs out there that are not great at gardening, go find an earth sign friend or a water sign friend and have them help you. Go help them with their garden for some stress relief. So then we look at Wednesday. We have a semi-square from Mercury to Venus. So efforts in social conversation, pleasantries, polite talk, superficial interaction, artistic or technical interests. So that just kind of feeds into me, suggesting maybe you should go help, your water sign friend or your earth sign friend with their garden this weekend. It'll give you a chance to socialize, and it'll give you some stress relief and something to take your mind off of all the anxiety that potentially could manifest throughout the midweek for this week. We are going into Gemini season. Gemini is one of the air signs that's very mentally active. So with us actually having the moon squaring to the sun for the midweek, and Mars being in Aquarius, this will be a very stressful week for most people, especially if you're already prone to anxiety. Alright, so as I mentioned in the beginning, that with the sun starting off in the 11th house, which has to do with friends, your extensions of self, and everything outside of yourself, that includes social media, that people are going to be really fixated on other people and their relations, or how they are connected with other people throughout this week. So everybody's going to be kind of sticking their nose in everybody else's business but their own, and while, the typical projecting their own self, perspectives or interests. So there might be some quarrels here and there, especially with having some aspects with Mars to Venus on Thursday. So it could be, it's going to be a very intense dynamic overall, just with the energies, and it could go either way depending on the scenarios and the people that you're actually, engaging in relations with. So we have a conjunction with transiting Venus to radix Jupiter, and this is being very idealistic or overemphasizing on your relations to other people. So potentially this weekend could be a great time to socialize if you can simmer down all the nervous tension going on. Don't go neurotic on people, okay? Luckily with the moon going into Libra for Friday, starting your weekend, people will be a little bit more sociable and graceful with those sorts of relations. Then we go into Friday, finishing off your work week. We have aspects from Mercury to Jupiter and Mercury to Pluto, as well as Jupiter to Neptune. So definitely a lot of projection will be going on with this, and likely a lot of squabbling with that socializing sort of thing, because that will feed in from the beginning of the week, us going into a work week or a week in general with the moon being in Leo, people being very emotionally invested in their self-interest or self-expression, and then going into a hypercritical manic sort of work week with the Virgo moon going into a season that squares that. It might be, if you're prone to anxiety or you're prone to really getting worked up, kind of like I am, it might be better for you to actually just do your own thing throughout this week instead of exacerbating potential stressors with socializing with other people. It's to each its own. Everybody has their vices and their virtues, whatever works for you. And also to anybody who is ever interested in having a horoscope reading done, you're more than welcome to contact me if you'd like to have your monthly forecast broken down like this for you as well. So with the trine to Jupiter to Neptune, it's a time for heightened intuition, explore spiritual or artistic avenues, ponder the meaning of life, explore different religious avenues. That's also something that is going to be clouding your judgment. So penetrating conversations, powerful speech, persuasion, and psychological issues. So that's again what I was talking about. If you're more prone to being really erratic and manic, you might want to just take this weekend to yourself. And if you are a water and earth sign, or you're great at gardening, then maybe just some you time with some gardening would be great for you, because with the semi-square with Jupiter to Mercury, you're going to be mentally pushing your limits, over assimilation, overconfident judgments, opinionated, and that definitely can lead to people arguing with each other. It's not a great way to start off your Friday. So then we look at Saturday, finishing off the week here. We have quite a few aspects going on between the Sun to Chiron, Mercury to Neptune, Mercury to Saturn and Venus, and then we have an opposition between Venus to Saturn as well. So finances will definitely be something to be aware of throughout this week. Since we're beginning this week at the 29th degree of Taurus, it's actually 28 to 29 degrees when bankruptcy is notorious for sociological influences. So there's going to likely be lots of talks of budgets, people having budget issues in general, and it might have something to do with actually your work or your salary could play into this. So that will continue on all the way throughout to Saturday. So it emphasizes that you may want to pause your social calendar and reassess your friendships or more serious relationships. And loyalties may need to be questioned. I hate to pick on all Geminis out there. I am a Gemini rising, so I feel like I have a little bit of leeway to talk about this, but Geminis are not necessarily known for their consistency and their loyalty too. So yeah, that's definitely something that would be a very necessary conversation for the moon going into Scorpio through the weekend. Then we have a sesquare from Mercury to Saturn with narrow focused thinking and limitations with communication or over judgments or being judgmental in general. Then that is semi-square to Venus as well, by the way. So likely the superficial interactions or the attempts at pleasant talk will likely backfire, and there might be some squabbles throughout the weekend. So again, that's what I was kind of emphasizing. Even if you're going to go socialize, just go garden or something. Go do something that doesn't necessarily require lots of dialogue, because it just doesn't look like that's going to pan out very well for most people. So the use of imagination and acute intuitive thinking, appreciate subtleties, artistic appreciation and vision. So again, great for activities, just keep the dialogue to a minimum for your own sake. Unless you like to debate and get into arguments with people, then have at it, because this will be a great weekend for that. Then we have Mercury entering into the 6th house. Daily life is your teacher. This is going to be an emphasis on the mundane. It is time for you to tune in and make decisions to boost your health and well-being. Especially with Uranus being in Taurus, there's lots of substantial health issues that could arise, and I also emphasize that on my Instagram. I think I'll go into a Uranus and Taurus medical astrology discussion at some point in the future. Maybe this week, I'm not entirely sure. I'm not going to exaggerate or assert myself with how stressful this week is going to be and give myself too much to do, but I'll get to it. So, effective communications and talks and calls, the need to make connections or for travel, transportation, or an exchange of something or some sort of agreement. So if you're going into any contractual things throughout the end of this week, just be aware. If you're going to actually review or revise some sort of contractual agreement of some kind, doing it on Tuesday or Wednesday would be a great day to look into that revision-wise. And then the agreement could essentially be a great time to go into that on the weekend. So following Friday into Saturday would be a great time for that. Alright, so let's go ahead and rewind to the beginning of the week again. And go over just the general aspects that aren't supposed to be based more on the United States. This is just for the general overview for everyone. So, for the 20th, some aspects between Mars to Chiron, Venus to Jupiter, and also Venus to Mars, Venus to Chiron. So I'll just go ahead and just read them off real quick. This is a time for spiritual renewal, and you now have the ability to view your life in a new light. It's the potential of having great epiphanies or stumbling onto altruistic wisdom. You have reached a significant turning point in your life journey. Cast off childish notions and proceed with honor. So it's time to be more Saturnian. That's definitely a Saturnian kind of perspective. You're entering a new cycle in life. Notice the signs of new growth. There is joy in starting over. It's a great time going into a new sign season as well. Love, pain, and the whole damn thing. Take the time to heal rifts and direct your energy in a more positive, bountiful direction. It's survival of the fittest right now, whether the sports field or workday life. Be productive, not destructive. That's reinforcing don't fall prey to the destructive signature with Pluto, Black Moon, Lilith, and Mars in the 7th house. If you do not use your energy constructively, you will end up having a downward spiral throughout this week, and you'll be a hot mess by the end of the weekend. You don't need to let that Virgo moon really ruin your work week and get you all worked up and stuff, especially with Mars being in Aquarius. That would have more substantial stress on you as opposed to anything else, and stress is definitely a huge health issue. It is the origin and stems with a lot of exacerbated health conditions as well. I just keep emphasizing that, keeping that in mind because of Uranus being in Taurus now. So want to party, resist the urge to be distracted. Now is your time to discover your true heart's desire. You need to make sure that you're focusing and redirecting your energy not only in a constructive way, but make sure that you're not scattering yourself. Gemini season is notorious for this, so that's something to keep in mind as well. Especially if you're an archetype that's already prone to being scattered, like myself, for example. So bliss, you seem to delight in everything and everyone right now. Take pleasure in harmony while it lasts. Again, enjoy that while it lasts. And don't overassert yourself and overexert yourself in social situations or even with yourself. It's great to, if you're not into meditation or yoga or some sort of calming exercise, this is a great week to start implementing that if you've been meaning to do so. It is time to say goodbye to painful associations. Opportunities exist for more positive relationships that support and sustain you. So again, that's going to be people prioritizing their social relations. Again, that'll go throughout the entire week and into the weekend. Feeling tense, time to discover your life's passion. It could be a personal or vocation or hobby, or it could be, again, eliminating things that are not necessarily directing you in a constructive way as well. Right now, you're in control and feeling good. This is a time to impress those of authority. Right now, nope, I already read that one, sorry. No major aspects for Monday the 21st. Then we go into Mars Day the 22nd. A profound healing moment in your life, painful or joyous. This is the opportunity of stumbling upon wisdom. Stay tuned for prophetic dreams, visions, healers, and teachers. The use of imagination, acute intuitive thinking, appreciation of subtleties, and artistic appreciation of vision. That's similar to some of the signatures going on for Friday as well. Spiritual awakening is occurring right now. Note that your dreams and your innermost thoughts. The use of imagination is emphasized yet again. Efforts at social conversation, pleasantries, polite talk, superficial interaction. A good time for competition rather than cooperation. So solve those problems but don't create them. Definitely on Mars Day especially too, with Aquarius again being the ruler of Mars at this point in time. Then we go into Wednesday, Mercury Day, so this is a mental day. And it does emphasize that there will be this opposition between Jupiter and Mercury about pushing your limits mentally over simulation or just mentally exhausting or exerting yourself. Again, stress and mental stress is going to be a huge emphasis throughout the midweek of this week. Memories and dreams are strong right now. It's time to forgive and forget. A good time for competition rather than cooperation is emphasized again for Wednesday. A profound healing moment in your life, painful or joyous. It's time for dreams, visions, or to discuss or have some sort of discussions with healers as well. Memories and dreams are strong right now. And then again, it overemphasizes yet again the mentally pushing limits. And that does have aspects to Chiron as well, which could have issues on the immune system overall. This would be a signature notorious for people who actually trigger some sort of illnesses or immune response issues, primarily due to stress. Then we go into Thursday. We have a couple aspects between Chiron sextile to Mars, as well as Mercury sextile to the Ascendant and conjunct in the 11th house. So this does emphasize that a lot of the stressors are going to be coming from your sociological contacts, so your friends, social contacts, study groups, or organizations, extensions beyond the self. That'll be the origin of a lot of people's stress throughout this week. And it's time to recognize your physical limitations and your mental limitations. And remember, the spiritual world offers boundless opportunities for healing and direction. Then we go into Friday. There will be a heightened sense of intuition. Explore your spiritual side. Ponder the meaning of life. Again, finding some sort of therapeutic hobby or, activity for the weekend would be more ideal than perhaps going to the bar or something typical that would be very intense on a social level and interaction level. It does emphasize yet again with a heightened intuition and spiritual connection. It also says that there will be substantial tensions that arise in your relationships. No one can give you the amount of love or needs that you require. Focus on positive or self-satisfaction. And again, that's what I was just emphasizing on. Try not to overwhelm others with the force of your personality. It is better to give rather than to take right now. Or again, like I said, a great weekend for you to just do your own thing and be to yourself. Or limit the social interactions if you possibly can. And a lot of the aspects for Saturday is kind of what I already emphasized in the mundane. Narrow focused thinking. Perhaps a pause in your social calendar. Reassess your friendships and serious relationships. Loyalties are questioned. And over-exacting judgments, limitations with communication, so people being quite narrow-minded and very judgmental and very defiant and confrontational will be the weekend. So that's something to keep in mind. Again, it's just it's a great week to be independent. I know that Gemini season in general is notorious for doing the polar opposite of that. But that's the beauty of keeping the transits in mind and being constructive with the transits kind of recommendations. Is sometimes you have to strategize just your daily life to avoid exacerbating potential issues in the future. And that's hindsight in a nutshell for you. So thank you for tuning in, and I hope to catch you guys next week. Have a good week, guys.